Hi, I'm Jackie with Army Wife 101. And if you or someone you loved served in the military from 2003 to 2015, you're going to want to tune in and share. The person that you love, their hearing may have been forever changed because of faulty earplugs issued by 3M to our military service members. So, those who served from between 2003 and 2015 were issued defective yellow, dark green dual core earplugs. I'm sure you've seen them before with your spouse's gear. Now, what's terrible is that 3M knew their product was defective and they gave them to the military anyway. Now, unfortunately, there's been no retribution for the service members. A whistleblower did bring this case to the attention of our government. A lawsuit followed, and 3M paid $9.1 million to the government without admitting fault. But in good news, the earplugs were discontinued. Unfortunately, for the service members, for your spouse, for your friends, for yourself, for your son, there's no compensation. There's been absolutely nothing paid out to our active duty service members and veterans who've been suffering with hearing loss, tinnitus, maybe you say tinnitus, even deafness has been reported. So today, this is a very important conversation. We're talking with Greg Goldfarb, and Greg is a personal injury lawyer with experience in disability and defective product cases. And Greg today is going to educate us on how we can work with him at no cost, that's right, no cost, to receive compensation for this atrocity. So, Greg, thank you so much for being here today and for talking with me.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you for having me, and thank you for sharing me with your audience.
Absolutely. Well, I think what you're doing is really important. It's unfortunate that this happened in the first place. So, as military families, we absolutely need a champion in our corner who is insightful, experienced, and knows how to navigate something like this big case. And I can tell you that I was an Army wife for 7.5 years. My spouse had 2 tours overseas. And even though he wasn't infantry, his MOS or his job classification still had him in situations where he was at firing ranges or around aircraft and other loud noises. So this can apply to anyone, no matter if they're there near IEDs and gunfire or if they're working in an office. There's still the opportunity for exposure, unfortunately. And when my husband got out of the Army, he said, I think I have tinnitus. And I thought, oh my gosh. So I Googled it and I found out that is the number one complaint now that's being lodged with the VA, that our service members or veterans are suffering from this. And that's, the buzzing, the hissing, the clicking, the sound in your ears. And right now there's no treatment, unfortunately. So it got me pretty fired up. So when you approached us and said, hey, I'm here to help, I thought, why not? Let's do this. Let's see what we can do. So I know I've talked a lot. I can't wait to give you the floor. And I understand that you also suffer from tinnitus as well. So I think you're a pretty unique person to talk to here. So could you go ahead, Greg, and tell us a little bit about your background and what exactly it is that you do?
Okay, thank you. So I'm an attorney, and I've been practicing law for over 2 decades, 23 years, I believe, to be exact. One of my first cases, actually, I was representing an air traffic controller who had a loud sound go through his equipment and caused him severe hearing problems, including tinnitus. So, right out of law school, I had what we call a federal workers' comp claim, and I was representing him. And back then, basically, the United States government did not even accept tinnitus as a recognizable injury. So, unfortunately, that was one of my first cases coming out of law school, and I was all hepped up and ready to solve all the world's problems, and I suffered a loss. And it was very devastating because I knew the individual after representing him for a year and seeing him in my office and seeing how it had affected him. He could not continue as an air traffic controller. He was a young gentleman, and he eventually had to get a job as a librarian. So I was very traumatized at the result and the fact that the United States government didn't even acknowledge the injury to be an injury. And since then, I've handled a variety of disability claims, injury claims, and worked, against, the government when they've done wrong. In this case, they have not actually done the wrong. It's been their contractor, 3M. So I'm here to help. I know a lot of people have not actually hired lawyers for their injury claims. I also know that a lot of men and women oftentimes won't accept the fact that they're suffering hearing loss, or that the ringing in their ears is actually occurring. So, just as an overview about the legal process and what I do is I represent people on what we call a contingency fee basis. So there's no cost to you, and if I don't get a recovery, if I don't settle the case for you, or if I don't win, then you have no obligation. You will not have to pay any money. It's only upside. And the types of cases that we're handling with 3M, there are a lot of similar injuries and a lot of similar issues with all the Army personnel that are suffering from either tinnitus or hearing loss or both. And so basically what is happening, and what happens in these type of claims where there's a mass number of people suffering from the same situation, is the cases will all get consolidated, or they go in front of one particular judge. And the idea is that instead of having every single case litigated fully, one judge is going to be hearing basically the same and similar issues with everyone. And that way, you don't have to prosecute your case as you would an individual case. So, not only are there not that much obligations in terms of, there's no obligations in terms of cost, but there's also typically a lot less involved from you in this type of case. Uh, for the most part, there's going to be a handful of people, such as yourself, that their claims are going to be the ones that are brought and litigated first. And then everybody's going to see how those cases go, how the trials go, what the decisions are. And then we essentially are able to get with the attorneys from 3M and negotiate based upon what we all see the results are going to be. So that's sort of an overview. It's almost like there's really not much to lose here, except for the initial questions that you'll have to answer from my staff, some paperwork, and basically your medical history to make sure that you did not suffer hearing loss or tinnitus from something else. For example, maybe some of you were in a rock and roll band, or went to a concert and unfortunately had the experience of sitting right next to big speakers, and things like that can also cause the same type of injuries that you might have suffered as a result of the earplug deficiencies.
Well, I think this is what's great about this is that there is no cost up front. As you said, only if the case is won will you receive something from it, a percentage. And I know that ideally, yes, I think our service members should have received payment, but I understand that this is the only way right now is you need to be proactive. So this may not be perfect, but I think this is a really good option. And like you just said, there are, gosh, I can't even imagine tens of thousands of people who've been affected by this. So if this has happened to you as a service member or someone you love, they're not alone, and it's definitely worth checking out, talking to a member of Greg's staff and seeing what can be done and how you might be able to receive compensation for these faulty earplugs. I know for my family, it's really frustrating watching my husband try to interact with the children because he won't hear them. They'll try to tell him the same story 3 times over and over again, and I have to intervene and say, they're talking to you, and he gets embarrassed, he can't hear. And it's the same thing in social situations, doesn't always hear the jokes. And I think, gosh, and I'm sure there's even worse case scenarios with deafness, but I just think, they sign up to serve the country, and you think that their gear is going to keep them safe and protect them, and then just because someone at 3M thought, it's okay, we'll give them to them anyway. Now this is something that service members, the veterans, and their families have to live with forever. So if you're interested in any sort of compensation to see what you can do to have your voice heard, Greg is your point of contact. And I've got it here a bit.ly/earplug3m. That'll take you directly to Greg's landing page that talks a little bit about the matter. And there's a really easy contact form as well there. So, Greg, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with tinnitus and just disability cases in general? Like, what is it about what you've experienced that makes you want to help others in that similar situation?
So, as an injury attorney or an attorney that represents people that have been victimized by defective products, usually I don't share the same injury as my clientele. So as much as, I understand pain and I understand limitations, I don't always fully understand or fully grasp what my clientele is going through. And it just so happens that at the beginning of this year, I developed tinnitus. And when it happened, I got a cold and I, did the Google research and what causes tinnitus. And it's been a while since I represented that air traffic controller, so I knew back then that there was really no cures or treatment and that it was a permanent condition. And I was kind of hoping that maybe there had been some new product that came along or new medication or treatment that would be effective. And while there is some improvements in treatments, there is no solution. And once I realized that my cold had not given me the tinnitus, it was devastating because, there's certain nights you can't go to sleep and all you're hearing is that ringing. And then you try to ignore it and then you can't ignore it. And so, while some people might say, oh, well, what's a little ringing in the ears? Until you've really experienced that on a day to day basis, and, including sleepless nights or whatever, it's really hard to fully grasp the impact of, let's just say, tinnitus can have on someone. I've seen plenty of elderly people, my parents, their friends, that, suffer from hearing loss. And, going out on dinner events with them and their friends, I could hear the couples sort of, arguing with each other. Hey, you don't hear me. Why don't you use your hearing aid? And I know that there's a lot of denial and a lot of frustration that goes behind that. One of the things, I know there are many other attorneys, many competent attorneys that are handling these cases, but one of the things that I'm trying to do to enhance the services to my clientele is to, on my landing page and my website, is to provide updated information about new products, new hearing aids, new potential supplements that might help out. Some people are swearing by melatonin, others, are swearing by certain hearing aids that they say. Some people are suffering from both hearing loss and tinnitus. You might only suffer from hearing loss, you might only suffer from tinnitus, or you might suffer from both. So I know that there are certain hearing aid products out there that are designed to help mitigate or basically handle tinnitus. So basically, the hearing aid will send out some soothing sounds that will mask the sound of the ringing in your ears. So I'm providing that information. I would say maybe every 2 months, updated product information that might be of help, or treatments. Some people are swearing by meditation and yoga and other holistic avenues or whatever. So I'm trying to share whatever might work. It might not work, but it might work for you. And obviously, if you, like, for example, meditate, there's a story of some person that actually is using the ringing in his ears to help him meditate. So I don't know if any of you meditate, but oftentimes meditation, they try to get you to concentrate on your breathing and or a visual image or whatever. Well, this person actually was concentrating on the ringing of his ears, and it actually was effective in terms of helping him meditate and also to deal with the condition. So, certain suggestions might work, maybe they won't, but I'm going to be there. I'm going to be the lawyer to provide you with that value added feature to my representation.
Wonderful. I think that's great because you speak from personal experience. And it isn't just about getting the compensation. It is because you have recognized and admitted that this is something you're just going to have to manage for the rest of your life. And you were talking earlier about some older people who can't hear. And unfortunately, some of these service members, I mean, they could be as young as 18 and now they're affected with hearing loss for the remainder of their life. So, for those
Yes.
of you just tuning in, I'm speaking with Greg Goldfarb. He is a personal injury lawyer, and we're discussing the fact that 3M for the years 2003 through 2015 knowingly issued faulty earplugs to our service members. And now many of our service members and veterans are expressing difficulties with hearing. There's been hearing loss, tinnitus, and in worst case scenarios, deafness because of these earplugs. So Greg is here to be a resource, to provide you answers, and at no cost to you, he can represent you to help your military family receive compensation. So I think this is really important and really incredible. So what is it then about our service members? What is it that attracts you to this community? Why are you wanting to reach out and help us specifically?
Well, obviously, the fact that they are here protecting us, enabling us to live just glamorous and glorious lives without fear. That in and of itself is just tremendous. My father was a veteran of the Korean War, and he was in the army. He was, so oftentimes in enemy territory, and he never really liked to talk about it. And he also has tinnitus and a little hearing loss. So I get to deal with him dealing with those issues. So I'm proud as all heck that my father was there, during those days to protect the country. And it's terrible that actually the people being victimized here are people that are putting their lives at stake. And it's just the old big business that really is only caring about their bottom line. And so the fact that they would issue these earplugs, and in the way they did it, it's just really it hurts me to my core. I know, Jackie, you had asked me beforehand what was one of the things that got me into being a lawyer. And I remember back in the day before we had 200 channels on cable that you could watch. When I'd be up late at night and I couldn't sleep or whatever, I would watch infomercials, and I would see a variety of get rich quick products, and it would just irk me to no end. I would see people on these glamorous boats and talking about how they can make you rich with real estate and all these other hokey products. And I was so furious that, first of all, that they could get on television and promote this and try to make money at people that, were legitimately trying to make themselves better, and they were being scammed. And so, I mean, to this very day, even just thinking about those days before cable, when people would have infomercials trying to dupe just the ordinary regular person who's trying to help themselves, and it still happens to this day. So that propelled me to do the type of work that I do. That propelled me to be a lawyer. Have I saved the world? No. Have I saved the planet? No. But I'm doing what I can. And one of the things that you have to understand about the law, and we told you that there's no cost to you, there's really no downside, but you have to act. You can't sit around and wait and say, well, right now it's not bothering me. I'll look into this 10 years from now. If you wait too long, you lose your rights to process a lawsuit and file a legal claim. And that's typically 4 years from the time that you suffered the injury. So you might have suffered the injury a couple of years ago. The clock might be ticking, and this might be your only opportunity to get adequate compensation that you might need down the road to help yourself dealing with these issues.
Absolutely, because this could infect your future employment prospects and all your relationships, all sorts of arenas in your life could be affected. So, if you're able to get compensation, get help, find ways to manage it, that's your best bet. So, I love that you may not have a superhero cape, but you've got your briefcase and you're ready to to fight for those who have been wronged. And I think that's really admirable, Greg. Thank you so much for that. So I went ahead and put Greg's landing page again up here. You can go to bit.ly/earplug3m. That'll take you to Greg Goldfarb's website, where you can read a little information on the case. You can get contacted by Greg. And again, all it's going to take is a little bit of your time and some paperwork. And I feel like it's absolutely well worth it to at least investigate and see what you've got here. Because as Greg says, you've got nothing to lose. So thank you so much for your time today. This has really been informative. Do you have anything else you'd like to add that we didn't cover, Greg?
No, I don't. I guess the one thing I'll add is if I do find the super cape, which I am looking for, you will be you and your audience will be the first to know,
Oh, fantastic.
and I will proudly wear it.
Well, wonderful. Well, keep doing what you're doing. And thank you so much for serving our military with this case against 3M and these faulty earplugs that, as I said earlier, have been linked to hearing loss, deafness, tinnitus for those who had these earplugs from 2003 to 2015. So, most likely, if you're watching this, you or someone you know and love have been affected by these faulty earplugs, and Greg is here to help. So thank you so much for watching today. And Greg, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
All right, thank you, Jackie. It was great. Bye bye.
Bye.